in a moment when the galaxy is already restless. For months, tension has been rising between two large alien alliances. Their leaders keep saying they only want peace, but their fleets keep moving closer and closer to each other, like two people arguing in a narrow street. Everyone can feel that one wrong step could turn the whole sky into a battlefield. Earth is not part of their conflict, but it has been invited as a neutral observer, someone who can watch from the sidelines and hopefully help both sides talk calmly. But calm is the last thing anyone feels these days. The human who represents Earth in this gathering is someone known for quiet thinking rather than loud words. They have no special rank or fame, yet people listen when they speak. There is something steady about them, like they understand the value of taking a breath before reacting. Nobody knew that this one person would soon stand between peace and a war that could burn across planets. When they arrived at the main station where the alien councils were meeting, they already sensed something strange. The atmosphere felt heavy, the kind of heaviness you feel before a storm. The station itself floated in neutral space, far from planets, so no side could claim control. It was built like a massive ring, glowing with soft blue lights, and its long windows showed stars stretching in every direction. The humans stood by one of those windows, watching the fleets moving outside. Two enormous groups of starships faced each other from a distance. They did not fire, but they were not relaxed either. It was like watching two animals circling, waiting for the other to make the first move. Inside the meeting hall, alien leaders argued in sharp tones. Their words were not angry, but fast and tense. One group believed the other had secretly activated hidden weapons. The other group believed the first was preparing to strike under the cover of negotiations. Both sides insisted they had proof. Both sides waved data logs and sensor readings, but the truth was lost somewhere in the confusion. The human could tell that none of them truly wanted to fight. They were terrified of looking weak, and fear can make people take huge risks. At one point, a council member from one side asked why Earth had even shown up. "You are new to this part of the galaxy," they said sharply. "Why should we trust you to understand our situation?" The human replied gently that sometimes a new pair of eyes can see what old eyes cannot. It wasn't meant to offend anyone, but it made a few aliens grumble. They had centuries of history behind them, grudges built over so long that even their children grew up hearing stories of betrayal. And now one human, a species barely known to them, was telling them to breathe and think clearly. As the human listened to their arguments, something felt wrong. Not wrong in the sense of a lie, but wrong like a puzzle piece that does not fit. The sensor readings both sides showed looked strangely similar, almost identical. Yet each side interpreted them in totally different ways. The human remembered something Earth scientists had explained before leaving. When large fleets gather in one region of space, unusual energy waves can interfere with long-distance scanners. Those waves can make harmless signals look threatening. The human wondered if that was happening here too. When they looked again at the data, their suspicion grew. It wasn't that someone was faking information. It was simply that everyone was scared, and fear had changed how they understood the readings. They were not acting out of hatred. They were acting out of misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that was about to become huge enough to start a galactic war. Outside the meeting hall, alarm lights suddenly flashed along the corridors. Voices echoed through the speakers. Both fleets had detected another sudden spike of energy coming from each other's side. The alien groups rushed to the windows to confirm it themselves. Through the glass walls, the humans saw the ships changing formation. They were locking into attack positions. The human's stomach tightened. This was the moment everyone feared. Inside the hall, panic grew. Some council members shouted that they must call their commanders immediately. Others insisted that retreating now would make them vulnerable. A few whispered that negotiations should end instantly. The humans stood still, their mind racing but their voice silent. They knew what this meant. If both sides believed the other was preparing to fire, then they would strike first, thinking it was self-defense. And if that happened, thousands of lives would be lost in seconds, and the war would spread faster than anyone could stop. The human approached the nearest console and studied the repeating energy spike. It looked almost identical to the glitch Earth scientists had warned about. A wave from a nearby pulsar was passing through this region at a strange angle. It wasn't dangerous, but it could easily confuse long-distance sensors. The human grabbed the console's controls and magnified the readings again, checking each part carefully. The more they looked, the more certain they became. This wasn't an attack signal. It wasn't even a weapon warming up. It was just a natural cosmic wave bouncing between the fleets. They turned to the alien leaders and tried to explain, but nobody wanted to listen. Everyone was too frightened, too convinced that danger was real. In stressful moments, even intelligent beings can become deaf to calm voices. One commander shouted that the human was downplaying the threat. Another accused Earth of taking a side secretly. The human felt the frustration building, but they stayed patient. Getting angry would help no one. Outside, the fleets drew even closer. Weapon systems glowed faintly, preparing to activate. The meeting hall trembled slightly as vibrations from energy fields reached the station. Everyone inside knew that when you can feel those vibrations, you are seconds away from disaster. That was when the humans stepped forward, raising their voice loud enough for everyone to hear. They explained the cosmic wave again, slowly, clearly, and with evidence. Not with emotion, not with fear, just facts. They outlined how sensor interference works, how it can create the illusion of a weapon charge. They showed the repeated pattern in the readings, a pattern no real weapon would have. A few council members paused, their eyes narrowing as they studied the evidence themselves. Some still doubted, but doubt is better than panic. Doubt can make someone stop and think. During those few precious seconds, the human looked around the hall and saw uncertainty on every face. That uncertainty meant there was still time. Maybe only a breath of time, but time still. If they could get both fleets to hear the same explanation at the same moment, maybe, just maybe, they would hesitate. But hesitation was enough. That was all the human needed. They asked the council to open a direct communication channel between both fleets, something rarely done, because each side feared exposing their internal discussions. At first, the councils refused. They argued that the other side might take advantage of the signal link to stall or sneak in a surprise strike. But the human pressed again, reminding them that silence would destroy every chance of peace. At last, reluctantly, they agreed. A joint communication screen lit up at the center of the hall. Dozens of alien commanders appeared on both sides of the display. Their faces looked tense, their voices sharp. The energy spikes kept flashing in the background. Everyone knew that one wrong sentence could tip them over the edge. The humans stepped forward into the center of the room. They were the only neutral face in the entire conversation. With all eyes on them, they explained the interference again. Not in complex scientific terms, but in everyday language that anyone could understand. A natural cosmic wave was confusing the scanners, making both sides think the other was warming up weapons. The commanders argued at first, but the humans stayed steady. Calm words in a tense room can feel like drops of water falling onto a burning surface. Slowly, very slowly, the heat began to lower. The humans stood there, knowing each second mattered. They could almost feel the entire galaxy holding its breath. And yet they kept talking, gently but firmly, laying out the evidence, showing the repeated pattern, asking both fleets to pause and verify the readings. Instead of reacting blindly, one commander asked why the human believed in this so strongly. The human answered simply, because the pattern matched natural interference, and because fear was making everyone read danger where there was none. That answer paused the room again. Something in the human's calmness reached the commanders in a way arguments failed to. In that moment, they didn't see a stranger from a distant world. They saw someone who cared enough to stand between them and a disaster they didn't truly want. Outside the windows, the fleets remained in formation, weapons dim but ready. It felt like standing in the middle of a vast silence before thunder. Yet that silence held. It didn't break, not yet. Part 1 ends with the galaxy on the edge, the human standing between two massive forces, and a single truth beginning to take shape. Misunderstanding, not malice, had led them here. And one human had noticed it just in time. The human standing in the center of the meeting hall, right after trying to explain the strange energy readings that were confusing both sides. But even though a few alien leaders had paused to think, many still refused to listen fully. Fear is powerful, and once fear settles in a room, it becomes very hard to push it out. The human knew this, yet they kept their voice steady, hoping someone would understand before the fleets outside made their final move. The hall was filled with different alien species, some tall and thin, some short and broad, some with shimmering skin that reacted to their emotions like a mood light. Many of them insisted that they had seen similar signals just before past attacks. The human understood why they reacted that way. When someone has lived through danger before, even a tiny sign can feel like a warning. But the human also knew that not every pattern repeats itself, and sometimes a familiar sign can be caused by something harmless. The tension grew as more reports came in from the fleets. Every few minutes, the consoles flashed with alerts. Energy spikes. Movement detected. Weapon fields heating. Even the hum of the station's engines felt sharper, like the whole structure could sense the stress. And above all that noise, the human could hear the unspoken truth in everyone's voices. Nobody wanted to fire first. But nobody wanted to be late in defending themselves either. Some leaders accused the other side of planning a secret attack under the cover of negotiations. Others argued that the human was misreading the data entirely. A few even suggested that Earth might be too inexperienced to understand what was happening. The human listened carefully, not taking any of it personally. They had seen enough conflicts to know that people say harsh things when they're afraid. Words spoken in fear are like sparks. They don't always mean what they sound like, but they can still cause trouble. The humans studied each face around them. Every leader seemed unsure, exhausted, and trapped in their own assumptions. The human could sense their frustration, and for a moment, they wondered if anything they said would matter. But then they reminded themselves of something simple. Even when people don't want to hear, they need someone who will speak with patience. So the human tried again. They explained calmly how cosmic waves could distort signals. They pointed out that both sides had identical readings, which was unusual for weapon activity. They highlighted that the timing of the spikes matched the predictable cycle of a distant pulsar. But each explanation felt like dropping a small pebble into a giant lake too small to break the surface. Too small to stop the waves of panic. One alien council member stepped forward with frustration. "If we wait any longer," they said, "we give the enemy a chance to strike first." That sentence hit the room like a punch. The human knew exactly what it meant. No matter how hard they tried to explain the interference, fear was turning imagination into reality for these leaders. They kept seeing danger, even where there was none, and that fear was pushing them toward a decision that could end millions of lives. The human realized they needed to do something different. Words alone were not enough. They asked for access to the shared communication channel again, the one that could connect both fleets at the same time. This request made nearly every alien leader freeze. Shared communication was risky. It meant opening a bridge where both sides could hear each other's panic. If the wrong message slipped out, the whole situation might collapse into chaos. Still, the human insisted. "You are all hearing different reports," they said softly, "but none of you are hearing the same truth at the same moment." The room fell silent for a breath. Even those who doubted the human understood that this was true. When two groups are scared, and both think the other is ready to strike, silence between them becomes dangerous. Misunderstanding grows. Assumptions become threats. The councils hesitated, whispering among themselves. The human could feel the seconds slipping away, ticking like a slow countdown. Outside the window, the fleets were drifting closer into offensive positions. Lights blinked across their hulls, signals of preparation. Even the soft glow of the station's main rings seemed dimmer now. Finally, after long hesitation, one group of leaders agreed to open the channel. The other followed reluctantly, not wanting to appear unwilling to communicate. The human let out the smallest breath of relief. It wasn't victory, but it was one small step. It could still change everything. The communication screen lit up again, brighter than before, showing commanders from both fleets. Their expressions looked tense, some with eyes wide from sleepless stress. The background behind them shimmered with red alerts flashing across their ships. Each commander seemed ready to give their fleets the final order at any second. The hall became so quiet that the human could hear the faint buzz of the station's cooling vents. Everyone waited for someone else to speak, but no one did. The commanders from both sides clearly didn't trust each other enough to start the conversation. The human stepped forward, knowing that silence now was more dangerous than any mistake. They began by repeating the same explanation as before: the cosmic interference, the misinterpreted signals, a pattern in the readings. But this time, they didn't speak to just one side. They spoke to everyone at once. Their voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room clearly, because it carried something rare in moments like this. Calm. The human explained what they had studied on the console earlier. They showed a small comparison chart on the display, highlighting how both fleets had identical readings. They pointed out how real weapon charges leave unique signatures, which these spikes did not have. They described how natural waves could bounce off large metal surfaces, amplifying the signal and making it look like a threat. One commander interrupted sharply, saying they had never seen interference this strong before. The human nodded and agreed. That honesty made the commander pause. Most people expect arguments, not agreement. The human explained that the presence of two massive fleets facing each other might be amplifying the cosmic waves in strange ways. Like sound bouncing in a narrow room, a few commanders leaned closer to their screens. Some doubted. Some wanted to believe. Others simply looked confused. The human knew that confusion was better than anger. Confusion could lead to questions, and questions could lead to delay. Delay was exactly what everyone needed. The human then said something simple, but powerful. If you attack because of a misunderstanding, history will not remember who was right. It will only remember that fear made everyone blind. That sentence didn't blame anyone. It didn't accuse anyone. It simply showed the truth in a mirror. A truth both sides reluctantly recognized. The room felt different after those words. The tension didn't disappear, but it softened slightly, like a tightened rope loosening by one knot. The human took advantage of that moment. They suggested that instead of reacting immediately, both fleets should pause their weapons for just a short time, long enough to run a deeper scan of the signals dotted first. No one agreed. Pausing weapons felt like lowering a shield. But then something subtle happened. One commander from the left fleet turned to another on the right fleet through the shared screen and asked quietly, "Are your readings truly identical to ours?" It was the first direct question exchanged that wasn't an accusation. The right fleet commander hesitated, then nodded slowly. This small moment, the first honest exchange, had more power than any speech. The human saw it and felt a spark of hope that the room wasn't safe yet, but it was changing. The humans sensed it like someone sensing a shift in wind, slight but important. They stepped back slightly, giving the commanders space to talk. Both sides exchanged a few more guarded questions. No shouting, no anger, just questions. Even those few questions were enough to slow the momentum toward war. Meanwhile, the human felt the weight of everything around them. They knew they weren't the strongest person in the room. They weren't the smartest, nor the most experienced. But sometimes the most important voice is the one that stays steady. When everyone else is shaking, the human watched the communication screen, watched the alien leaders, watched the trembling glow of the station halls. Outside, the fleet still held their positions, still prepared, still dangerous. But for the first time since arriving at the station, the human felt that the future wasn't fixed. There was still space between disaster and peace. Part 2 ends with both fleets listening carefully, reluctantly, but listening. The human's voice has reached them, even if only a little. The galaxy is still seconds from war, but now those seconds are being stretched, slowed, held open by one person who refused to let fear be the loudest voice in the room. The human standing in front of the giant communication screen, feeling dozens of eyes on them. The fleets outside were still locked in dangerous formation, and the tension in the air pressed against everyone like an invisible weight. Even the soft hum of the station sounded louder than usual, as if the whole place understood that one wrong sentence could change the galaxy forever. The human felt their heartbeat rising, but they didn't let it control them. They had learned long ago that calmness isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing steady thoughts even when fear tries to take over. So they took a quiet breath and told the councils that they needed direct access to the main communication channel. Not the limited one that showed only a few commanders, but the full broadcast line that linked every ship in both fleets. The room reacted immediately. Several leaders stepped back in shock. That channel is only used during surrender talks, one council member argued. Or during emergencies, another added. Their voices clashed like two waves slamming into each other. No one wanted to use that channel. It was too open, too visible, too exposed. But the humans stood firm. "This is an emergency," they said gently. "If all of you keep receiving different pieces of information at different times, fear will twist everything you hear. But if every ship hears the same truth at the same moment, even for just a few minutes, misunderstandings might slow down." For a moment, nobody replied. The leaders exchanged uncertain looks, as if trying to decide whether this human was brave or reckless. But the human didn't argue further. They simply waited. Sometimes silence can speak louder than pressure. And slowly, one council member nodded. Then another. And another. Eventually, enough agreed to activate the channel. The lights dimmed slightly, and the central screen expanded until it filled the entire front wall. Dozens, then hundreds, of small images appeared: captains, officers, pilots, technicians' faces of many species, each one tense. Some had eyes glowing with alarm alerts. Others looked pale or exhausted. All of them were preparing for what they believed might be the first strike of a massive war. The humans stepped closer, aware that thousands of people were watching. They didn't try to give a speech. They didn't want to sound like someone commanding a crowd. They simply wanted to talk the way they always talked, with honesty, calmness, and respect. They began by showing the strange signals both fleets had detected. They explained how cosmic waves sometimes copy themselves in strange ways. They showed a small recording of the pulsar cycle, matching it with the same exact rhythm appearing in the sensor reports. The humans spoke in simple words, making sure their explanation felt real, not complicated. They knew that complex words could make people feel lost, and feeling lost in a tense moment only creates more fear. One ship captain spoke up. He looked doubtful. "We have never seen interference this strong," he said. How can we trust this explanation right now when our sensors show danger? The human nodded. You don't need to trust me blindly, they replied. But you should trust your own data. The patterns match perfectly. Real weapons don't rise and fall in such smooth timing. And both fleets are seeing the exact same spikes. If one of you is preparing to attack, the energy readings would be different. That answer caused a small shift. A few officers leaned closer to their screens. Others looked at the charts behind them. Someone on the right fleet whispered something to their captain, who nodded slowly. The human used that moment and continued. Fear can make us read danger where there is none. Fear can take a small signal, can turn it into a threat. But if we react too fast, we might start something no one is prepared for. Their voice stayed soft, but the message carried through the entire channel. People listened because the human didn't try to control them. They didn't speak like someone who believed they were above everyone. They spoke like someone who understood how heavy fear is, how confusing danger can feel, how every decision in tense moments feels risky. The human then explained the interference in practical terms. They compared it to hearing echoes in a big hall, how your voice bounces and comes back sounding like someone else, or seeing a shadow in the dark and mistaking it for a real person. Simple images connected with the listeners. Even the alien species who didn't share human culture understood the examples, because fear and confusion are universal. Still, the fleets hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to lower their weapons. The human felt this pressure growing again, like a slow wave returning. They needed to act quickly before the fear took over again. They spoke more firmly now, not louder, just stronger. If either side attacks because of a misunderstanding, there will be no winner, only regret. And the truth will come out later when it's too late to undo the damage. Right now, you all have a chance to pause, not to surrender, but to check the readings again. Together. One commander from the left fleet frowned. What if they attack during the pause? He asked. The human turned toward him. If either of you wanted to attack now, you already would have. The only reason you're waiting is because you're unsure. That uncertainty means you're looking for truth, not war. A long silence followed. It stretched across the hall, across the fleets, across the galaxy. Silence filled with heavy breaths and worried eyes. But silence is better than alarms. Silence means people are thinking. Slowly, a commander on the right side raised her hand. She said softly, "Our newest scan still shows the same rhythm you described." Then another agreed. The pulse lines match. More confirmation came in, one voice at a time. Each agreement softened the room a bit more, like slowly dimming a harsh light. The human's heart eased a little, but they didn't relax yet. This moment was fragile. A single burst of fear could still undo everything. They needed to take the next step. They suggested a temporary communication bridge, a shared data stream between both fleets. Not full transparency, just a small window where the sensor readings could sync in real time. If both sides saw the same numbers at the same second, the fear might drop even more. Some leaders resisted the idea, afraid of revealing too much. But others understood the necessity. After some tense discussion, both sides agreed to allow a short, limited data link. The human watched the numbers sync on the screen. As soon as they did, a small shift rippled through both fleets. The readings were identical, perfectly identical. The cosmic wave pattern showed clearly now, like a heartbeat visible in a quiet room. For the first time since the crisis began, the fleets didn't move closer. They stayed still. The human took another quiet breath. They knew they couldn't celebrate yet. But this pause, this tiny pause, meant hope. They looked at the commanders and said, "This is what misunderstanding looks like." Two sides preparing for danger that wasn't there. But now you see the truth. You still have time to choose wisely. One of the oldest council members spoke softly. You acted when others froze. Why? The human answered simply, because sometimes a calm voice can reach where fear cannot. The room didn't explode into applause or relief. The danger wasn't gone, but something had changed. Something small, something fragile, but real. People were thinking again, not reacting. Listening again, not panicking. Part 3 ends with the fleet suspended between fear and understanding, the human's message echoing across thousands of speakers. The galaxy isn't safe yet, but the door to peace has opened, just a little held open by one human who refused to let silence win. In a moment where everything feels strangely quiet, the shared data link between the two fleets is running smoothly, and for the first time since the crisis began, the signals from both sides match perfectly. No weapon spikes, no rising energy fields, just a repeating wave pattern made by the distant pulsar. The human watches the synchronized readings, feeling a small, fragile sense of hope forming inside them. Maybe, just maybe, the worst can still be avoided. But even with this new clarity, the room is nowhere close to relaxed. The councils of both factions look uncertain. Their eyes shift back and forth, unsure which step to take next. They know the signals are not from enemy weapons, yet fear doesn't disappear so quickly. Fear always leaves a mark, even when the danger is gone. Several commanders turn off their private mics and begin whispering among themselves. Some look relieved, others look frustrated, and a few look almost embarrassed. Nobody likes to admit that they almost started a war over a misunderstanding. Pride is a heavy thing, heavier than any armor. And right now, pride is sitting on everyone's shoulders. The human senses that the next few minutes are even more important than the scans. If both sides don't agree on the next step, they might fall back into suspicion. Any small rumor, any unexpected sound, any minor shift could restart the panic. So the human steps forward again, not to control the situation, but to guide it gently. They speak in a steady, warm voice. You have all seen the readings. The signals are the same. The danger you thought you saw is not real. This is your moment to decide what happens next. One commander crosses his arms. He looks uncomfortable. Even if the readings were wrong, he says, if we pull back now, our people will think we were scared. Another leader nods. If we retreat first, our rivals will see it as weakness. The human understands this perfectly. In many places, strength is seen as confidence. But in moments like this, strength can also be seen in patience. The human thinks for a moment, choosing their next words carefully. Quick, sharp words would only make them defensive. But soft, thoughtful words might open a different door. The human says gently, choosing peace is not weakness, and choosing anger is not strength. Right now, what your people need is leadership that protects them, not leadership that reacts in fear. The room grows quiet again. A few commanders lower their eyes. Others look at the synchronized charts, as if seeing them for the first time. The human's words don't magically solve everything, but they soften the edges. They weaken the tension just a little. One council member asks, if we agree to pause, what guarantee do we have that the other side won't strike later, pretending it was a misunderstanding? This is exactly the fear that has fueled the conflict for years. The human takes a deep breath. They know the answer needs to be something practical, something both sides can accept without losing dignity. So they propose a simple solution. Create a neutral verification team, they say. Let a group of trained experts from different species examine the signals together. Neither side will control the investigation. Both will receive the same information at the same time. There will be no secrets, no hidden data, and no reason for doubt. This idea seems bold to some, risky to others. A few leaders exchange long looks. Independent verification means giving up control, even if only temporarily. But it also offers a way out and exit that lets everyone save face. The human continues. You don't need to trust each other completely. Just trust the truth that will come out from people who have no interest in taking sides. Silence stretches again, but this time it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like thinking. Deep thinking. The kind of thinking people do when they realize that maybe, just maybe, there is a better path. Finally, one leader speaks. If the other side agrees, we will accept the investigation. A leader from the opposite faction responds slowly. If the terms are equal, we will accept as well. That moment changes the air in the room. Both sides have spoken. Both sides have agreed cautiously, reluctantly, but genuinely. The human watches as the shared communication screens show commanders nodding one by one. The tension is still there, but it's not sharp anymore. It's softer, like a storm beginning to fade before the rain ends. The fleets outside shift slightly. Not back into danger, but into stability. Ships spread out just enough to show they're not preparing to strike. Weapons remain charged, but no longer heating. Engines stay active, but not locked onto attack positions. It is the kind of movement that says, we are still alert, but we are listening. The human feels a small rush of relief, though they hide it behind a calm expression. They know the situation is still delicate. A misunderstanding avoided is not the same as peace achieved. But it is a step, and sometimes a single step can change the direction of an entire journey. The councils begin drafting the communication for the investigation team. They argue over details, what time zone to start in, what equipment to use, who will serve as observers, how long the verification should last. Normally, such debates would feel tense. But compared to moments ago, this feels almost peaceful. People arguing over details is much better than them preparing for war. Still, the human doesn't relax. They stand quietly to the side, listening, watching, making sure the discussions don't drift back toward suspicion. Every now and then, a commander looks at them for reassurance, and the human gives a small nod, reminding them that slowing down is okay, that patience is a choice. One of the older council members approaches the human quietly. You brought us here, he says softly. If you had not spoken when you did, all of this could have ended very differently. The human shakes their head gently. I didn't bring you here alone. You all chose to listen. The elder studies the human for a moment, then says, listening is easy in peaceful times. Listening during fear is the hard part. The human doesn't reply. They don't need to. They know the truth of those words. After a long while, both councils finalize an agreement. They officially pause all attack preparations, switching their fleets into defensive standby instead. They schedule the investigation to begin immediately. A team of neutral experts will be brought aboard the station to examine every piece of data. This agreement doesn't solve every problem. There are still political tensions, old grudges, and memories of past conflicts. But for the first time since the start of this crisis, both sides are working toward something together. Instead of racing toward a disaster neither of them truly wanted, the human steps back near the window and looks out at the fleets. The ships look calmer now, their lights softer, their engines settling into a quiet hum. Space feels a little less dangerous than it did an hour ago. The human lets the moment sink in. They don't feel proud. They don't feel heroic. Mostly, they feel grateful that people chose to think before reacting. Grateful that truth found a small opening. Grateful that fear didn't win. At least not today. Part 4 ends with the investigation set to begin. The fleets paused in a delicate balance, and a single human standing quietly in the center of it all. The galaxy is still tense, still uncertain, but now it has a chance, a real chance, to step away from the edge. The investigation team in place, composed of experts from multiple species, all neutral and trained to examine data without bias. The humans stand slightly apart, observing quietly as the specialists begin their work. Outside, both fleets remain in their defensive standby, engines running, but weapons cooled, lights dimmed to a soft glow. The station feels tense yet calm in a strange way, like the air just before a gentle rain. The human watches the team review the sensor logs. The specialists move carefully, their attention focused on every detail. They compare readings from the fleets, check the cosmic wave patterns, and cross-reference past signals. What they find confirms what the human had suspected all along. The spikes in energy that had nearly caused war were entirely natural. They were caused by a distant pulsar interacting with the metal surfaces of the massive fleets. The data leaves no room for doubt. Once the verification is complete, the team broadcasts their findings to all commanders. Every ship receives the report at the same time. The message is simple, factual, and clear. No weapons were charging, no attacks were planned, and the readings were distorted by natural cosmic phenomena. Every commander reads the same words. Every officer hears the same explanation. The illusion of imminent war is gone. For the first time since the crisis began, relief spreads across both fleets. Small gestures appear, engines relax slightly, lights stop flickering, and communication channels become calmer. The tension that had felt like it could crush the station now loosens. Even though no one says it aloud, everyone knows how close the galaxy came to disaster. The near miss hangs in the air, heavy but also grounding, a reminder of what could have been. Inside the station, the councils take a moment to acknowledge the human who helped guide them through the chaos. Many of the commanders exchange glances, some with slight nods, others with quiet smiles. They do not fully understand this species' humans, but they respect the calm, determination that had kept both sides from making a catastrophic mistake. No grand speeches are made, but there is a shared understanding. The human's voice changed the outcome when fear could have controlled it. The human feels no pride. They know the work isn't entirely done. The fleets are still tense, political friction remains, and centuries of old grudges can't disappear in a single day. But they also know something important. A single calm voice, backed by reason and patience, can create a ripple that reaches further than anyone expects. They remember the countless warnings, the moments of hesitation, the seconds where silence could have ended everything. And they realize that even small acts of clarity can save entire worlds. After the verification, discussions begin about how to prevent a similar near war in the future. Both councils propose shared monitoring stations, independent verification teams, and improved communication channels. Agreements are drafted, not rushed, ensuring that each side retains dignity while still committing to transparency. The human observes quietly, offering suggestions only when asked, helping guide the talks toward fairness. It is a slow process, but steady progress feels more meaningful than fast but unstable resolutions. Meanwhile, the human notices subtle changes in the fleet crews. Where tension had once stiffened shoulders and narrowed eyes, now there are signs of relief. A soft exhale, a hand running through hair, eyes closing briefly in gratitude for calm moments. These small gestures remind the human that even in massive crises, individuals still feel deeply. Ships are large, fleets are massive, but people creators, operators, observers are the heart of everything. The human feels a renewed sense of responsibility. Reason and patience may have won this round, but the human knows vigilance is always necessary. Over time, the news of the verification spreads beyond the station. Messages flow across the galaxy, carried by communication networks and individual word of mouth. People on distant worlds learn how close the galaxy came to war, and how one human's calm intervention helped avoid disaster. Some celebrate the idea that a single voice can create real change. Others discuss the dangers of misunderstanding, the importance of independent verification, and the lessons of patience. The human does not seek fame or recognition, but they notice the effect of their actions and feel quietly satisfied that reason prevailed. Back at the station, both fleets begin preparing to leave. Their ships adjust positions, engines shift for travel, and communication channels return to normal. The human watches this movement with cautious relief. There is no celebration, no fanfare, only quiet acknowledgement that a disaster was averted. The human reflects on the moments that could have led to conflict, the spikes in energy, the misread signals, the fear that had almost controlled everyone. They realize how fragile peace can be, and how important it is for someone to step forward when tension becomes overwhelming. As the fleets move farther apart, the human receives a message from one of the lead commanders. It is brief but heartfelt, a simple acknowledgement that without the human's intervention, the outcome might have been catastrophic. The human reads it quietly and lets it sink in. They understand that the value of their actions isn't in praise or recognition. It's in the lives spared and the worlds kept safe. That thought is enough. The councils of both factions convene one last time before the fleets depart. They summarize agreements, outline new protocols, and ensure that lessons from this incident are recorded for the future. The human participates silently, observing how dialogue and patience have replaced suspicion and panic. They realize that this is the true power of diplomacy and calm reasoning. It allows individuals to influence outcomes far beyond their immediate control. Finally, the human stands at the edge of the observation deck, looking out at the departing fleets. Stars stretch endlessly in all directions, quiet and steady. The galaxy feels enormous, yet smaller somehow, as if one careful choice can echo across light years. The human feels a sense of closure, knowing that the crisis is truly over, at least for now. But they also know the galaxy is vast, and future challenges will always arise. Still, this moment proves something important. Courage isn't always loud. It can be quiet, thoughtful, and steady, and sometimes that is enough to save everything. As the fleets disappear into the distance, leaving trails of soft blue light across space, the human takes a deep breath. The galaxy has been spared, peace restored temporarily, and the lesson is clear. Misunderstanding and fear can be more dangerous than any weapon, and the voice of reason can be more powerful than any fleet. The human turns away from the window, ready to continue their work, knowing that vigilance, patience, and clarity are the tools that can shape the future. Part 5 ends with the galaxy safe, fleets returning to normal patrols, and a single human whose calm presence changed the course of events. The crisis that could have destroyed countless worlds is avoided, not by firepower or intimidation, but by one person's steady voice, patience, and unwavering dedication to truth. The galaxy may never fully understand this human species, but every commander and officer present will remember the moment when reason and calm prevented a war that could have consumed everything.